Hi, everybody. Well, I am sitting here with another candidate. Oh, I am so excited. I have had so much fun interviewing candidates. And now you may say, oh my gosh, political stuff? Well, these people are all about us. Every single one in their heart of hearts wants to help Cape Cod people, and they want to represent us in the State House. So I am here today with Jay McMahon. Jay, how are you?
Thank you. It's great to be here with you today.
Well, it was so much fun. We were talking a little bit before we started here. I love the piece that you have here, Common Sense Leadership. Common sense is a big deal to me.
It's a rare commodity now.
Well, common sense isn't very common.
That's right.
And my father used to say that, and I'm from the Midwest, and I grew up on a farm. So common sense, it was instilled in me. It's in my DNA. And sometimes I do want to pull my hair out, and I want my head to explode.
Right.
So tell me, why in the heck are you running for this office?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I've been a resident of the district all my life. Born and raised in Bourne. And my law practice, I'm a lawyer, been a lawyer for 30 years, and my practice is on Main Street in Buzzards Bay.
Wow.
And I mean, like, God's been good to me. It's been a good practice. It's been a good life. But I have seen a lot of things going on in state government that have troubled me over the years. I've seen the erosion of our rights. I've seen...
like what rights?
Oh, every day in my law practice, I deal with the Constitution.
Yeah.
We really do, because I do a fair amount of, I do some criminal cases, but even in civil cases as well. First of all, First Amendment rights, right to free speech.
Right.
A lot of things you can't say now that you could have said at the founding of the Constitution.
I know, but they would never have thought of thinking of saying some of those things. It wouldn't have been decorum back then.
The Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, and all the others, all the other rights.
Yeah.
I've seen a huge erosion of those rights. A lot of them may have seemed like they're good ideas to do it, but in the end, it erodes the rights of all of us. I've seen taxation, even today, even now as we sit here. The legislature on Beacon Hill are thinking of ways to tax us over and beyond what we've already been taxed. And I know you know this, but I don't. Your viewers, I just want to say, we have a $1 billion surplus in our budget, in our state budget. $1 billion surplus. People say, that's a lot of money. What are we spending it on? We're not. Here's the point. We take in more money right now on the present taxes that we have than we're spending, to the tune of $1 billion. And yet we've got new taxes that are coming up, that are being on Beacon Hill, that they're discussing right now. One of them is the TCI. The TCI is the Transportation Climate Initiative.
Right.
And we could talk about that, but that's going to more than double your present gas tax, the gas tax on your car. Now, here's the problem. Right now, we have a very good economy. It's the best I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Well, we're #2 in the nation to live in as a state.
I'm telling you right now, it's
a great place to live.
We got, our unemployment rate is less than 3%, actually nationwide. Yeah. So it's great. It's a great economy. But there's not a downside, but a byproduct of that, people are working. So people have to get to work. How do you get to work? You drive your car.
Right.
You're from Cape Cod, you either take the bus, or if you're going into Boston, or you have to drive.
Right.
But the people on Beacon Hill are coming up with ideas of how to get more money from you while you're driving to work. I call it punishing, and I'll tell you why. It's taking money from your wallet. Here's a good example. They want to more than double the gas tax. They want to do open road tolling. Do you know what that is?
Yes, I do know.
Explain
it
for
to
your
everyone.
viewers. If you go on the Massachusetts Turnpike, back several years ago, you used to go through tolls. You'd have to pay the toll. You knew what you were paying. You could see it on there.
Well, now you do a transponder.
Now it's with a transponder, and if you don't have a transponder, that's okay. They got plate readers, so they will read your license plate, and the same kind of reader that police cruisers have in them, they can read a plate, and they have everything they need on you. They know who, well, at least the registered owner.
Yeah.
They know who you are.
Right.
They know where you live.
Yeah.
And they send you a bill.
Right. Right.
Okay. So they want to take that nice little experiment that they have, and they want to put it on Route 3, Route 495, Route 195, 95, 93, and 91. They want to put these erector set pieces over the highway
Right.
and bill you every time you use that road. They want to put tolls on the bridges. I'm against all that, and I'll tell you why. First of all, we have $1 billion surplus, so why do we have to do that?
Right.
We had $1 billion surplus last year. So in 2 years, a $2 billion surplus. If they can't think of ways to spend it, I don't want them to keep going in my pocket and the pockets of the people, the citizens of the Plymouth and Barnstable district. So here's the deal. They're trying to do open road tolling. This Transportation Climate Initiative wants to double the gas tax. And the third thing that they want to do is put a mileage tax on every citizen of Massachusetts. In other words, every driver. Now you might say, how are they going to do that? Do they have to put a device in your car? Well, some people were talking about that, putting some kind of a different type of transponder in every car. But they got a backup plan, and here's the backup plan. Everybody, at least once a year, you have to take your vehicle in for an inspection.
Right.
Now, in the old days, they used to jack the car up, check the ball joints on it, have you step on the brake, make sure
Right.
the lights are all working. Not anymore. They got a thorough examination of your
Right.
vehicle
Right.
with a computer, which is online, direct to the registry, and there's cameras in the inspection bay.
Yeah.
So the registry sees everything that's going on. And part of that examination, I call it examination because it really is. It's more than an
Well, you're
inspection.
taking your car to the doctor once a year.
Absolutely, you are there.
Right.
And, but it's not to help you. It's to disqualify you or otherwise to make sure your car's working properly. They transmit to the registry, and some of the information they're transmitting is not only your plate number and your vehicle identification number and your name and address, but they're also transmitting the mileage on your odometer.
So that's how they would tax you.
Because next year, they
When you
just know
get
the
your-
difference, and just like they
Would
do.
it be a part of your excise tax?
No, it's going to be a new
A
tax.
new
It'll
tax.
be a bill coming from the Department of Revenue, courtesy of the Registry of Motor Vehicles.
Right.
And it gets sent to you because they already know what the numbers are. Now,
Right.
people say, well, wonder if I buy another car. Well, these people are smart. What they'll do is they'll estimate, send you a bill like they do with the water or electricity or
Right,
anything like
right.
that.
A
And it's
final.
up to you to dispute and say, hey, this is way too much and prove otherwise. So they, on Beacon Hill, they are thinking overtime
Sure.
on how to punish us by more taxes.
Okay, so our governor, and I like Charlie Baker. I am, as I told you before we started, I am of a liberal persuasion, a progressive persuasion.
You
but
did say that.
I did, but you know what?
And I'm okay with that, too.
And you know what? I voted for Charlie Baker.
Okay.
Because I like him. I like he's fiscally conservative. However, I listen.
The majority of voters in Massachusetts voted for Charlie Baker
Right.
because he's the governor.
Right, right. So here's the thing. He gave a speech. I don't agree with some of his policies because I'm also a big proponent of culturalism here on the Cape and arts and culture. And he wants to cut a lot of money out of the Mass Creative, which bothers me because that reaches into communities and kids and helps everybody from somebody who has an opioid problem to a kid who has learning disabilities to senior citizens. So he wants to cut some of that money out, and again, that bothers me. However, that said, he did a big proposal on turning Massachusetts green by 2050. Now, I'll probably be dead, but that said, I mean, you got to pay for it somehow. I mean, it's going to come from somewhere. So taking, and we know the tea, which, you know what, if you don't take the tea, it makes you angry that it's always these problems. But I know a lot of people who do take the tea or who do take the commuter rail, and it needs fixing desperately, desperately. So how do we move people from point A to point B and not charge them more money somehow? Tell me how we do that. Now, I know we've got $1 billion over here.
Yes.
But, however, $1 billion is $1 billion. But how are we not going, if we even use that, that might not even be enough. So on the long run, and we do need 2 new bridges, there's no doubt about that. You can't dispute we need new bridges. What do we do to pay for this stuff?
Okay, well, let's just go in reverse order what you said about the bridges.
Okay.
Let's talk about that. First of
Okay.
all, the good thing for us here on Cape Cod and in Massachusetts, those bridges are owned by the Corps of Engineers.
Yes.
United States government.
Know that.
And we want to make sure it stays that way because they pay for all the repairs.
Yep.
And having lived in the town of Bourne all my life, I know when those bridges are under repair because you
How
almost
horrible
can't
it
get,
is.
you can't get from one side of the bridge to one side of my town to the other. The canal cuts the town of Bourne in half.
Yeah.
And so we need those bridges, and we need them to stay with the federal government so that people from Hawaii and California and New Mexico and all their tax dollars are also helping to pay for these bridges.
Absolutely. I don't think there's anybody who's going to try to take them away from the Corps.
I would hope not, but there is talk on Beacon Hill about controlling those bridges, and with controlling comes maintenance. It would be a disaster for us to take that on. So
I don't
would be
think that.
against
I sit on a committee for the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. I'm on
Okay.
the board. And I've been on for many years. And one of the things that I actually volunteered to be on was the Bridge Committee. And the reason why I wanted to be on is because I live in Sandwich. When the bridges are tied up, there becomes gridlock in Sandwich.
Absolutely.
And when there's gridlock in Sandwich or Bourne or anywhere, that means emergency vehicles can't get through, or they do, but they're slower. It means that you can't go from point A to point B.
Right.
People, plan their days about, okay, we're not going to go out between the hours of 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. or 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. because we know it's going to be crazy.
Right.
So that's why I'm on that committee, and nowhere has it said that the Corps would not be responsible for those bridges.
Right.
Nowhere.
Yeah.
But the best thing about the new bridges is they'd be wider.
I know.
Those bridges were built for Model Ts.
I know, 1935, absolutely right.
And people used to walk. I have pictures, and I'm sure you've seen them.
No.
The pictures of people, women, strutting across in their beautiful dresses on the day it opened because they were walking across with their hats on. I mean, it was delightful.
Mrs. Ballard was with the scissors cutting the ribbon.
Yes,
Yep,
yes.
That's right.
So, how do we solve that? Again, God bless America. How do we solve the problem without taxation?
Well, right now, the way they want to solve the problem is on the backs of the working people trying to get into the city.
Right.
And to me, why punish them?
Right.
They're already paying
Well,
their
how do we
taxes.
not do that then?
Well, there's a lot of creative ways that people can come up with.
Okay.
For instance, they can do. There's some plans that I have seen alternating speed limits to break up some of the lag time that are on the highways. I've seen some creative closing of certain exits and entrances on the highway so that you can keep, instead of having traffic constantly interrupted.
Right.
So there's a lot of studies that are still out there. But why not do an overall commissioning to like MIT or Tufts or something like that,
Right.
engineering schools, and say, look, come up with something.
Right.
Nobody's done that,
I
That's
did
the
not-
thing.
See,
That's the thing that's
I
odd.
kind of thought they'd already done that.
You would think that they did.
Well, it was common sense.
I'm telling you. And you mentioned something about the opioid crisis, which has been a crisis. That was actually my number one issue when I ran for Attorney General. It's still my number one issue.
It's still out there.
I lost my oldest son to the opioid crisis, and
I'm
I know
sorry.
a lot of families who have lost people to that. Here's the problem with the crisis. People use statistics and numbers. For instance, they'll say, 5 years ago, we had 1,800 people who died in Massachusetts. It went up, but it didn't go up much. The next year it was like 1860. The next year was 1,910. Next year it was 2,000. And people say, well, it's not really going up that high. It's different people each year who are dying.
Right.
So in other words, in the course of 10 years, we've got over 10,000 people who are dying of this problem. So it's not, when you look at it as lives instead of just a statistic, it's only gone up several hundred people. No, that's 2,000 plus several hundred that are dying this year. So I got to give the governor his credit and give him his due. He gave all first responders Narcan. He had it available for everybody. And when you mentioned that you like the governor, I'll tell you, my position is when the governor is with the people and giving us a good plan, I'm going to be with them. But when it's going to hurt us, and hurt drivers, especially from Cape Cod driving up to going to work to Boston, then I will be against those plans, and I am not in favor of the TCI. I have gone throughout this district. I'm door knocking. I'm going door to door. I haven't yet found one person in favor of the TCI. Now, if you're in favor of it, congratulations, I just found one. but that's huge. I mean, there's several things that are important to people that I've been meeting with. One is they don't want more taxes. They're getting croaked by the excise taxes on their houses through the towns. They don't want to continue to pay more through their state withholding tax, and then on top of this, throw some more money on the gas taxes and stuff like that. So they're against that. And I understand their plight because I'm one of them. I mean, I live in the district. I'm feeling the same pinch they're feeling.
Yeah.
So they're concerned with that. They're concerned with the opioid problem because there's not a family in the Commonwealth that has not been touched by this.
I recently did a conversation with the local superintendent of schools here, and she was telling me that times have changed so dramatically. There are so many people in here in Sandwich. You know, Sandwich is pretty perfect. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did. That's why I left.
Yeah. It's a very perfect town.
So it would stay
and
perfect.
we don't have any problems here in Sandwich. Everything is, is rainbows, and it's just perfect.
I love Sandwich. It's a nice Americana.
It is, and it's very historic. So here's the problem, though, is we have a lot of grandparents raising grandkids because the parents aren't around for various reasons, and that's tough. It's tough on the school system. It's tough on the grandparents, certainly, and it's probably tough on the kids. I mean, at least they have a home. They're not in social services. Right. So how do you negotiate that? Beacon Hill is the one that has to negotiate all these things.
All Beacon Hill can do is give funding.
Right.
That's all they can do.
That's all they do.
A government program. Government programs don't work, especially when it comes to the opioid problem. We've seen the statistics. Private pay rehabilitation programs are 87% effective. Now, I remember I was being told that by an expert, and I said, wait just a minute, Doc. So you said 87%. Now, I'm a lawyer. I'm trained to hear. I do trial work all the time. I said 87 isn't like, hey, we're almost 90, or hey, we're better than 50. You said 87. I said, how can you be so sure with 87%? How can you give me that figure? He says, because we track them. I said, you track all your people. He says, as private pay programs, physicians track the success of their patients. So I said, so I was listening to that, and I was completely surprised by that. And I said, okay, so if you're tracking these and you know there's 87% success rate, then what are you doing with the other 13% to make it 100%? He goes, no, CJ, you don't understand how it works. When I say 87%, that's the first time through the program. When those people are failing that 13%, we take them through wherever they fell through on the program. We put them back, not necessarily at the very beginning, but put them through the program so they become part of the 87. So I said to him, so you're saying when your patients are done, they're cured of opiate addiction? Am I reading this right? He looked at me. He said, absolutely. I said, Doc, does the government know this? He goes, they do. I said, well, what's the success rate with them? They go, it's almost 100% failure. I said, when you say 100%, you mean the first time through the program? He goes, I know people who have gone through the program 30 times.
Well, then why
We're
isn't there-
wasting money.
Well, so why aren't we doing a public-private partnership?
That's one. Thank you for raising that, because I can segue into that. That's one of the first things I'm going to demand when I become the state senator of this district, because I'm very well aware of this opiate problem. I know what it's doing to us. I know what it's doing to families, because I know what it did to mine.
Right.
And I know when I was on the campaign trail for Attorney General, I would have people telling me stories that were just gut-wrenching as to what opiates have done to our society. And I'll tell you what, I have the right connections with the experts, because when they saw me making a big issue of this, they started giving me real information about not only government programs that are failing, but how we can correct them. Basically, it takes a little bit more inpatient, takes some facilities, but I actually found 2 facilities, and I'll tell you where. There's a place called Westwood Lodge. That's just west of Boston. And it used to be
In Westwood?
In that area, yes.
Yeah.
And it used to be a psychiatric facility that was decommissioned. Decommissioned means it's wide
Yeah,
open. They use
right.
it as a warehouse now. It's got secured facilities. And so I was saying, if I become the Attorney General, I was going to set up a program to do something with it. But we could still do this program through the state. I just can't do it as an Attorney General. And basically utilize that place in eastern Massachusetts, and there's a hospital right in downtown Springfield that has, it's a private hospital. They have 3 facilities. They just notified the Department of Health, well, this was several years ago, that they were going to decommission the one downtown Springfield. I said, 2 great places in Western Mass.
Sure.
Now what you do is, without getting into too many of the nuts and bolts, you just do these programs in waves. In other words, you start a wave of people coming through, they're getting so many weeks through the program, and then you start another wave while those people are still there, and you just do a cycle of rehabilitation. And if you get some people who are somehow failing through, by careful monitoring, you get them started again. The drive, the addiction drive for opiates is so powerful that even though you have all these monitoring in place, when you see that happen, the way to protect a recovering addict is to see it and take corrective measures with it. And I don't mean punishing them.
No, I
mean
understand.
start them into the program
Right.
and keep monitoring them.
Right. Well,
And they
again,
work.
well, it seems like that's, once again, it's common sense, and that's your whole tagline is common sense.
The real problem we have now with government programs is they're revolving doors. People are going through it 20 and 30 times.
Sure.
I was shocked when I met with couples, parents of loved ones who either have died or are in the process. And when I first met with these couples, it was 50 couples, so it was 100 people. It was like a horseshoe
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
And I was around asking people. We were just sharing stories. And so I said, after we got through about 10, 15 minutes, I said, let me ask you right now, how many here have loved ones presently in recovery programs or rehabilitative programs? Every hand went up. So I said, wow, okay. So I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe it's just a coincidence that everyone happens to be in one. So I said to somebody, I just put out there, how many have had people that have gone through the program, say, loved ones that have gone through, say, twice?
And they raise their hands.
No, nobody did.
Really?
And then I said 3 times. Nobody raised their hand. I said, so I said to my wife, am I asking this question correctly? She says, go up higher. I said, how many 6 or more? All the hands went up.
Huh.
I said 6 or more times. So then I went around the room. How many times? 10. How many? 15, 18, 20,
Right.
22. Guy raises his hand,
Huh.
says 30. He stood up. He said 30. He had tears coming out of his eyes. And I said to him, 30 times. I said, and he says, and this one isn't working either. And I thought to myself, these are parents who are struggling in the program. So I said to him, I said to all the parents, I just sort of mentioned, I said, why Are you putting yourselves and your family through this if that's it? And the guy says, we've got no place else to go.
And that's the problem, isn't
That's
it?
the problem.
Well, what
We
are you...
got to fix it.
Okay, what are you going to do? You talked about gas tax. I just came back from California in December. I have a sister who lives out there. And gas, I mean, we pay very cheap gas. She drives a Lexus SUV. She pays $7 a gallon for gasoline. So we are nowhere near that in other parts of the country. So I guess my question is, if we're not going to put a gas tax on anything to improve our roads, where are we going to get the money to do that?
Okay. First of all, thank you for the contrast in California.
I mean, really, people, you have no idea.
No, people, I'm pointing west. Okay, west is California. We do not want $7 a
No,
gallon
we
gas
do not
here.
want $7 a gallon
We
gas.
actually don't want our gas going up another penny with either taxes or just the raw price for gasoline.
Right.
We don't want it going up. We got to face the music. Right now, right here and now, our economy floats on gasoline. That's how it works. We've got, until we come up with electric cars that are efficient,
Right.
we're stuck with that. We don't want $7 a gallon. Now, you asked me, where do we come with the funds? I did explain to you again, but I'll say it again to the
Just
viewers.
one more time, because I'm
We
slow. I'm
have
from
$1
everybody.
billion surplus.
Everybody knows I'm from Ohio originally, so they know I'm slow.
Yeah, you're almost in the heartland of the nation.
Right, that's right.
Good place.
We're at the
Good place to
east
come
coast
from.
of the middle coast.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so we got $1 billion surplus right now. We spent $100 million last year, $100 million in overtime for the T. $100 million. That's huge. You know,
Yeah,
if
crazy.
we said, hey, you know, we spent over $1 million, people would say, well, that's a lot of money. $100 million in overtime.
Right.
The Registry of Motor Vehicles is asking for $52 million for more money for present staff.
Wow.
We want to reward employees for bad behavior because everybody knows the Registry of Motor Vehicles is one of the most corrupt organizations in state government. Now, when I say corrupt, I'm not necessarily meaning in the evil sense.
Right.
I'm saying they just from top to bottom, they've got issues. And we all know about it because if you're reading any of the Boston newspapers on a daily basis, you will see it always in there. There's something wrong at the Registry of Motor Vehicles.
Right.
I can tell you just as a defense attorney, many times I'm representing people with things who all of a sudden their license is suspended. Never got a notice, never knew why. We get in, now this is on their computers. We go to court, get a certified record from the registry, no suspension on there. It is the craziest thing. Now you might say, well, how often does that happen? Well, if it happens once a week in my office, then that's quite a bit. Now, there's 5,000 lawyers in Massachusetts. If every lawyer got one of those, you could see that's a huge problem that
Sure,
we have
sure.
that apparently is either not being addressed or at least not being addressed fast enough.
So what you're saying to me is, if you get in office,
Yes.
right, and
Right.
represent us,
Right.
Sandwich, Falmouth, Bourne, and up into Plymouth, right?
Plymouth, Kingston, and Pembroke.
Right. So if you get into office, what you're going to do is you're going to look into this, all of this.
Yeah, and I'll tell you how I'm going to do it. Through the budget process.
Excellent.
Because that's how you do it.
I
When
see.
they all of a sudden, they got a line item in there, and all of a
You're
sudden
going to
it's
ask
like-
questions.
Absolutely, and get documents, and
Excellent.
get statistics, and asking. Now we've got this. This program that we're using. That's for the government programs for the opioid problem, right? And they're going to say, yes, that's right, that's right. Okay, now commissioner or director or whoever it is, I'm going to ask you now. What are the percentages of the recovery in this? Well, we don't this or that, this or that. You don't have those, okay? Give me the names and the directors of the various programs, and we'll get these documents and find
Right,
out. And when
right.
we get it, I'm going to expose it, and I'm going to come on to shows just like this and tell the people, this is what we found. You got to consider who you're sending up on Beacon Hill.
Right. Well, this has been the fastest show I've done with a candidate so far, just so you know.
This has been a lot of fun. I love being on this.
Well, I love your common sense leadership. It certainly makes sense. You talk a good game about it. I hope that you can play that game really well. I wish you the best of luck, Jay.
Thank you.
I really do.
Thank
And
you.
it's been a pleasure
meeting you.
It's been a pleasure meeting you as well. Thank you. Jay McMahon, running for state senate. Good guy. Seems like he knows his stuff. So I'm glad you joined me today, and don't forget to vote. Very important. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on another Cape Conversations.